All right, hey everybody. We're here, we're talking about instinctive shooting and is it dead? Is it a good thing to do? Is it that kind of stuff? And I am an instinctive shooter. As you can see here, we are at 20 yards away. And instinctive shooting can be quite accurate. There's no doubt about it. We'll zoom in and look. Now the deer one kind of kicked down because of the way the target is, but as far as we can zoom. But those are two perfect shots on a hog and a perfect shot on a deer as well too. But being an instinctive shooter, okay, is this stuff, let me come back around here where you can see me, is instinctive shooting still a viable way to do this? Is it worth it? Is it a good thing? It's a tough question is what it is. In my opinion, as somebody who's been an instinctive shooter for over 30 years, I will never change. I will continue to shoot this way. It's magical when it happens, and the accuracy is spot on, deadly accurate when you're good at it. There's some pros and some cons, but for me, as you see down there, it works incredible. When it works, and what I mean by that is there are times that it doesn't, in the fact that if you are a gap shooter or a string walker, or you do this where you anchor down here and your arrow's up there, or whatever method it is that you're using for some kind of an aiming system, whether that, I think people do that so they can look right down the arrow. I'm not sure. Again, I'm out of touch with how a lot of that crap works, but whatever, if you're using some sort of an aiming technique, I think you're probably going to do better because of the fact that you have that availability of some kind of a reference point, almost like a sight pin to put on the deer or the hog or whatever it is that you're shooting at. It allows you to have a reference point of that so you can literally line that up. You can take this and draw it back, and you can put that dot, that end of that arrow, whether you shoot like this or you shoot with it down your eye, but you have somewhere to put that aiming point, and you're telling the arrow, put the point of the arrow where you want it to hit, or below it, or you got this. You have a method of some sort of aiming system that is going to help you. Now, do I believe that gap or any sort of an aiming system is as accurate, as spot on accurate as instinctive shooting? No, I don't. I just don't. But I do believe that a aiming system for most people is going to be more viable because it's more repeatable under hunting stress and situations. See out here, I can do this over and over again and not miss. I mean, I could literally shoot 100 arrows and every one of them being a vitals. We're standing right here at my 20-yard line is right where I'm shooting at. We could do this all day. We could go back here to 27 yards and most of them will be in there. I can do this just over and over again out here. But when it comes to real world hunting, it's not uncommon to miss as an instinctive shooter. If I can't hold that focus on that point, like when I shoot at these, I am focusing on a hole, a spot, a little point on there that I am drilling in with my eyes, and then I'm going to shoot it. So what that looks like when I'm drawing, it's like this, okay? So here, I'm gonna come right into camera. So here it is. So for you guys, when you aim, you come in and you draw and you do your thing and you line up and then you put your arrow tip and you do your math, okay? And you're going back and forth and you're like, there it is right there. That's where look at my eyes. That's where the arrow is, where the vitals is. There it is. And then you shoot and you can see that, okay? And it works. For me as an instinctive shooter, my eyes never leave that target. If that camera is the spot, it's literally deer, 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 then I lock on right there. My draw comes in and I never take my eyes off of that spot. It's not looking at my arrow to see where it is. It's not paying attention to where my arrow is in the peripheral vision. It is literally locking on that spot, never removing my eyes from it. If I do shift focus slightly, which happens a lot in a hunting situation, whether it's because I have to see if I have to look ahead. If he's walking and I have to look ahead, like my eyes are on him like this, with you, and then I gotta look ahead to see if he's gonna hit that window. When I look ahead over here and I lose that focus, if I don't regain that focus, and I've done videos on this, then I end up shooting at the whole body. So as traditional or as instinctive shooters, we will find ourselves, if we do not pick an exact spot, our eye will try to find that spot, okay? And it's gonna basically do it based on definition of edges, and you're more prone to shoot at the edges. So instinctive is a magical, wonderful, amazing way to shoot a traditional bow. There's nothing better about it. I can't describe it in any term better than magical. I've had shots happen in my career that would blow your mind. It's been incredible on every kind of level. The downside is that when pressure of the hunting world comes in, when that moment of truth is there, variables kick in, pressure kicks in, things like that, we are more apt to, or I should say I, as a instinctive shooter, I am more apt to make mistakes that are on a bigger level. Now, the good news to that is I seldom ever miss by 2 inches, okay? What I mean by that is, as an instinctive shooter, I am either spot on perfect every time, or I am off by a mile, okay? Because if I'm holding focus, the beauty of instinctive, if I lock that focus, nothing else is there. My focus is zooms right into that point, right there, just like that. It locks it. And doing so makes it really, really hard for me to miss. If I lose that focus, then I can miss, but I miss big. So I guess that's a kind of a silver lining to it, is that it's a very rare day that I actually wound an animal because of the fact that I was off by 3 or 4 or 5 inches and end up, shanking a shot. I can't tell you the last time I hit an animal high and lost it or things like that. It doesn't happen to me very often because I'm either spot on or I'm way off. Take it for what it's worth. Maybe you're not the same. Maybe it's just me. It could be whatever it is. But that's what I seem to notice happens to me. But some of the best bow hunters I've ever seen and some of the best shooters I've ever seen in my life are instinctive shooters. However, I know a ton of people that are gap shooters. Okay, I don't know about all this other crap that people do, but I know a lot of gap shooters. And they are deadly in the woods. And they are also fantastic on a 3D range or on targets. Their groups might be a little bigger, okay, than what I'm doing as an instinctive shooter. Again, that's because of the focus that I have. See, when you're gap shooting, you're using a point of reference, which also, I believe, coordinates with your bow hand has to be perfect. Your release has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. Where I honestly believe as a traditional bow hunter, my mind knows when my release is not real good or I'm not focusing on it. It knows when I'm short drawing a little. It knows when I'm drawing too far back. It can feel that feather hitting my face. It can feel the string on my chest. It can feel the torque in my hand. It can feel if I'm putting more pressure up high or more pressure down low or what I'm doing. But it knows all of that stuff and it calculates for that. And it helps me put that arrow there still, in my opinion. Believe it or don't, that is your choice. But in my opinion, my groups are always super, super tight. My shooting is always phenomenal, or I miss by a mile sometimes when I'm hunting, and I believe that. Now, the gap shooters that I know, their groups may not be as tight, but they are still putting all of their arrows in the vitals. Okay, it may not be this tight, but it's here and it's always in the vitals. And when it comes to the world of hunting, they have that crutch, okay? And I don't use the word crutch as a bad thing, but they have that aid, I should say, of that arrow point. So in the moment of truth, when they're hunting, they get to literally take that and go, and they go, there it is, boom, and I shoot it that way. It's methodical. For us, it's emotional. It's lock that focus on, drill it in there, bring it back, boom, and hit it right. It's a different kind of a world. What do I think is better? Honestly, I would say for hunting stuff, I would say for 3D, you can't beat an instinctive shooter. That's my opinion. No offense. Or for targets or stumps or anything like that where there's no emotion involved of the involvement of the target, no movement involved in there, no any of that. And actually, I couldn't even use the word movement because I'll tell you what, when it comes to moving animals and walking, instinctive wins hands down all the time. This is such a fine line and a very apples to oranges comparison. So I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but let's just put it this way. If I were teaching somebody to shoot or recommending somebody do something, I would say learn a form of gap shooting first. Okay? It's going to get you on target quicker and more consistently. It is going to let you have that aid to help you when you're actually shooting at live animals so that you can take that focus off the reality of the situation and that spot that you have to pick and let you focus on the gap between your arrow and that spot you want to hit, therefore making a better shot, I think. So that's my opinion. I would say as a form of gap shooting or some form of aiming is going to be better for most people. However, do not discredit or take away anything from the fact that instinctive shooting is one of the most magical things that can ever happen, and it will show you things that will absolutely blow your mind. The amount of arrow clanking, knocks broken, Robin Hooded arrows, as an instinctive shooter, they're part of the game. It just is. It's such a powerful, beautiful system, but it does have its drawbacks, and it hits everybody with those drawbacks differently. For me in the woods, I've made it no secret that I've killed 200 deer and probably close to 50 hogs now in my whole life, but probably close to 40-50 hogs somewhere in there. I'd have to go back and look, but it's got to be right near, because remember I killed about 12.5 of them on preserves years ago when that was popular, and I think I've killed 25 down here, so yeah, we got to be right in the neighborhood. But when you put that into real world experience there, and you're shooting at these animals, that instinctive factor has a tremendous power, but it hits me with, if I lose focus, if I lose that focus on that spot, my mind just doesn't know what to do with it. A perfect example of that would be like my wife Tina. One time we were bow fishing when we lived down in Michigan. I took her down by Metro Detroit area, some of the rivers that I grew up on there fishing, bow fishing, and we were on a bridge and a monster carp came rolling through, and she had her recurve bow fishing bow, and anyway, so she's like this, and she draws back and she's looking at the fish. I'm like, are you going to shoot that fish? She's up here. Okay, we're 12 feet up on a bridge and the fish is right there below her, but she draws back like this because there's a railing here, so she kind of had to draw over it and was going to shoot below it, but she draws back like this, and she's like there. I'm like, shoot the fish. She's like, I'm gonna shoot him. And she's watching. I'm like, shoot, you're not going to shoot him. You're shooting down the river. She's like, what? Oh, like that. That's what she did. But she was following it with her eyes. She was on it. She was focusing on it. But there was a disconnect between the body and the mind on what had to happen there. Okay, she was so intently focused on it that she forgot she had her bow up here where she drew. She drew back and then she looked at the fish, but forgot to bring her bow with her. And that's what I'm saying. With gap shooting, that never happens. Okay, because gap shooting, you're automatically always looking at that line and looking for where that is, and you're going to be there. With instinctive shooting, it is all mental. It's that connection between there. That connection has a raw power to it that is unmatched by anything you could ever do, and it is, simply put, magical. But I do not believe it is the best way to learn how to hunt with this sport, with these kind of weapons. I do not believe it is the best for everybody. I do not even believe it's probably the best for me, but I'll never change it because, again, the magic of it is amazing and what I can do with it is amazing. And there is that hidden benefit for me of the fact, me personally, I don't know about you, but when I do miss, I miss big, like I was saying. 40-ish hogs, couple hundred deer, and yet I've missed over 100. Promise you, missed over 100. But those misses have been misses by a mile. Okay, realistically, wounding, like as far as like pulling it left or right or too high or something like that, I could count those out of so you call it 300 shots on animals. I could count all them on 10 fingers. That I've done that over a course of 300 animals. I could count every one of them where I was off by a few inches. They're very, very rare. Okay, I'm either spot on perfect, as you see right here, where they are dead nut spot on, or they are off by a mile, either high or low. It's kind of how it works for me. So there's a real magic to instinctive shooting, but I do not believe it is the best way for everybody. And I especially do not believe it's the best way for people starting out. And so you see these guys that are gap shooting and that are string walking and doing all these aiming systems, more power to them. Like I said, I think it's a great thing. I think it's probably the best way today, especially with the way people hunt today. They hunt a lot different. Today, everything is done in a tree stand with shooting lanes cleared, and everything is a picture perfect kind of scenario, and they got all the high-tech gear, and it's just this, and it's a lot different than it is when, like, for example, hog hunting, where I'm moving through stuff and everything is unknown, the terrain, the situation, what cover I have, all these kind of scenarios, and most of the time I'm shooting down on both knees on the ground, hunkered down as low as I can with my bow horizontal to the ground to try and keep my body down. I've showed you examples of that, and if you're in my Patreon, you see all of this stuff happen real world in those kind of shots that I'm doing. Like, you can't do that very well with an aiming system. There is a beauty to instinctive shooting, so I will never take away from it. But like I said, there's that fine line. So which is better? There is no better, but I honestly believe that the edge goes to the people that aim and do stuff like that. In most situations, especially for deer hunting, things like that. You start getting into hog hunting and things where you're still hunting and spot and stalk hunting, I think instinctive then edges over and wins completely. But take it for what it's worth, use it for something to think about, and figure out your system and what's going to work best for you. Just understand that there is no one better than the other for everybody. I know people that will never be a good instinctive shooter, and I know people that will never, like me, I would never be good with gap. The second I've tried it so many times trying to tell myself, let's see if we could do better and miss less if we gap shoot. Every time I try and gap shoot, I explode. I come apart. It's just a fail for me, miserably. Probably because I never started that way. I always shot instinctively right from the beginning. I read that book, Instinctive Shooting by Fred Asbell, many, many years ago, and it just kind of stuck with me, and that's what I thought, that's how these were meant to be shot. That's why I fell in love with this bow, was the fact that I have none of that there. It's all purely emotional. It's a powerful thing for me. So for me, it's the best there is. But I will never discredit anybody shooting in an aiming system, and I honestly, like I said, in a lot of scenarios, 90% of the scenarios, I think some sort of an aiming system is a better way to go. So take it for what it's worth. Use it for a little food for thought. Let it roll around in your head and find what works best for you. Thanks for watching.